If you ever find yourself driving through the Midwest at night, far from the city lights, you might stumble upon a town that feels wrong. A place where the air grows colder, where the streetlights flicker for no reason, and where locals refuse to speak after sundown. It's a town so small, it barely appears on the map. Yet, it is whispered about more than any other place in rural America. Tonight, we're traveling deep into the forgotten backroads of the United States to uncover the chilling story of the most haunted small town in America, a place called Wraithwood, Indiana. Wraithwood is the kind of town you could drive past without noticing. The population sign reads 312, but locals say that number hasn't been updated since the early 1982. Some claim it's far lower. Others insist it's far higher. But nobody agrees on who or what is truly counted. Surrounded by dense forest and cut off by a single winding road, the town has no malls, no gas stations, just sprawling farmland, abandoned barns, and a history soaked in tragedy and unexplained disappearances. Visitors describe a sense of being watched. Animals refuse to cross its borders. And at night, shadows move in ways that defy logic. Over the last century, Wraithwood has been linked to a cursed burial ground, a ghostly woman in white, a phantom train, and a mass disappearance of 23 people no investigator has ever solved. But what makes Wraithwood different from other haunted towns is that the hauntings didn't begin randomly. They began with a single event, a mistake that cursed the land forever. Tonight, we uncover the truth behind Wraithwood's origins, its hauntings, its disappearances, and the one night the entire town heard screams echoing from the forest. Because in this town, the dead don't rest and the living don't stay for long. Wraithwood's curse began long before the first houses were ever built, long before the roads, the farms, or the population sign at the entrance. The land was originally home to the Kaskalan people, a native tribe who lived peacefully along the riverbanks, long before European settlers arrived. But the peaceful life of the Kaskalan ended in the winter of 1823, when a group of settlers led by a man named Elias Rourke entered the region. Rourke was a harsh man, a believer in superstition, yet fueled by greed. When his group found the land fertile and untouched, they decided to build a settlement there. They ignored the warnings of the Kaskalan chief, who told them plainly, "This land is not empty. It listens. It remembers." But Rourke dismissed them. He forced his men to clear a burial site, a sacred ground where the Kaskalan placed their dead. Graves were uprooted, bones were scattered, and the oldest oak tree, believed to be the spirit guardian of the tribe, was cut down. According to Kaskalan legend, disturbing the burial ground would awaken the watcher beneath, a spirit responsible for guarding the threshold between the living and the dead. 3 days after the burial ground was desecrated, the settlers heard strange cries at night. Wolves howled at odd hours. Livestock died suddenly. And every morning, deep footprints were found around the settlement like hoofprints, but too large to belong to any known animal. The settlers tried to leave, but something always stopped them. Horses refused to budge. Wheels broke. Storms formed out of nowhere. Rourke insisted they stay, hoping the strange occurrences would pass. They did not. One by one, settlers began disappearing. A hunter named Samuel Poe vanished in the woods. A mother found her infant missing from her crib with no tracks in the snow. A group of 4 men who went to investigate the forest never returned. By spring, only 6 settlers remained. Desperate, they built the first church in Wraithwood. Not out of faith, but out of fear. They hoped that building a house of worship over the disturbed ground would silence the curse. It didn't. The pastor they brought in was found hanging inside the church only 2 weeks after arriving. The remaining settlers fled, leaving the land abandoned for nearly 20 years. But in 1850, when the railroad expansion reached southern Indiana, new families arrived unaware of the warnings buried in the town's past. They built homes, they built farms, and they unknowingly revived a curse that was never meant to sleep. The first haunting that became widely recorded happened in 1889, with the arrival of the Davenport family, Henry and Sarah Davenport moved to Wraithwood with their 2 children, Emily and Thomas. They purchased a farmhouse on the outskirts of town, the same land where the settlers had once disappeared. At first, everything seemed normal. But 3 nights after they arrived, Emily, the 8-year-old daughter, told her mother, "The man with no eyes keeps watching me through the window." At first, they dismissed it as childhood imagination. But then Sarah herself began noticing strange things. Footsteps around the house at night. The sound of someone tapping on the windows. A shadowy figure near the barn that disappeared when approached. Henry thought it was thieves or animals. Until one night, he saw a tall figure standing at the edge of the field, staring directly at their home. He fired his rifle, but the figure didn't flinch. It simply turned and walked into the woods without making a sound. A few nights later came the most terrifying incident. Sarah awoke around 2 a.m. to the sound of Emily crying. When she rushed to her daughter's room, she found the window wide open. Emily was sitting on the floor, shaking, pointing toward the trees. She whispered, "He wants me to come with him." Henry locked the house down and sat awake until sunrise. The next morning, they found large prints circling the farmhouse. The same hoof-like prints described by the original settlers. But this time, they were clearer, heavier, and they circled only Emily's window. The Davenports planned to leave the town immediately. But on the morning they were packing, Henry went to the barn and never returned. They found his body 3 days later, leaning against a tree deep in the woods, with his eyes missing. The coroner claimed it was an animal attack, but locals who saw the scene whispered otherwise. His body had no scratch marks, no dragging, no signs of fight, only perfect surgical removal of both eyes. Sarah took her children and fled the town that very night. And from then on, the land where the Davenport farmhouse once stood earned a new name: the Field of the Watcher. By the early 1900s, Wraithwood had become infamous among nearby towns. People spoke of strange lights in the trees, voices on the wind, and the eerie sound of a distant train whistle every night at 3:11 a.m., even though the railway had shut down years prior. But nothing compared to what happened on the 14th of October 1922, a day known as the Vanishing of 23. It began during the annual Harvest Festival, the biggest event in Wraithwood. Families from neighboring counties visited. There were games, food stalls, music. It was the only day the town felt alive. Historically, nothing supernatural ever happened on festival day. It was believed the celebrations kept the curse quiet. But that year was different. Around 5:42 p.m., as the sun dipped behind the trees, a thick fog rolled into the town square, darker and heavier than any natural fog. It swallowed the entire area. Within minutes, people panicked as children vanished from sight. Stalls became hidden in the mist. Visibility dropped to nothing. Witnesses later described seeing black silhouettes moving inside the fog, tall, thin shapes, gliding between the festival tents without making a sound. Some said they heard whispers. Others said they heard screaming. A few reported feeling cold hands brush against them. When the fog finally cleared, 23 people were gone, vanished without footprints, without clues, without a single piece of evidence. The missing included 5 children, 11 adults, 7 teenagers. Entire families were torn apart. Search teams combed the forests for months. They found nothing. No clothing, no bodies, no signs of animal activity. Even trained dogs refused to enter the deeper parts of the woods. The most disturbing detail came from a young boy who survived by hiding under a wagon. He claimed he saw a figure in the fog, a man with long limbs and hollow eye sockets, stretching his hand toward him. He said the figure whispered, "One day, you will join the rest." For decades, the towns around Wraithwood used the incident as a warning never to visit. The Harvest Festival was canceled permanently, and the town's population declined rapidly as families moved away, terrified that the curse might strike again. To this day, none of the 23 have ever been found. And every October 14th, residents claim the fog returns drifting silently through the streets. In recent years, Wraithwood has become a quiet ghost town, populated mostly by elderly residents and a few families too poor to leave. Yet the supernatural activity has only intensified. In 2003, A group of paranormal investigators visited Wraithwood to document the town's history. They set up cameras near the abandoned railway, hoping to capture the phantom train locals reported hearing. That night, at exactly 3:11 a.m., their audio equipment recorded a distant whistle, followed by the sound of wheels screeching on metal rails. But the tracks in Wraithwood are rusted, broken, and unused. Even more disturbing, their video footage showed a faint beam of light moving across the trees, like a train headlamp, with no physical train anywhere in sight. One investigator, Melissa Keene, claimed she felt something grab her shoulder during the recording. When she turned, no one was there. The next morning, she had 5 long bruises like the marks of a hand pressed into her skin. In 2015, a local named George Halper reported seeing a woman in a white dress standing in the middle of the road at night. He stopped his truck and called out to her. The woman turned slowly, revealing an eyeless face, dark, hollow socket staring directly at him. George sped away in terror. When police checked the area, no footprints were found. In 2019, 2 teenagers exploring the forest vanished for 12 hours. When they were found, they had no memory of where they'd been, only that they heard whispering voices saying, "Go back. Go back. You don't belong here." Quote. They both described seeing tall shadows moving between the trees, matching the descriptions from 1,823, 1,889, and 1,922. And in 2022, a drone enthusiast captured aerial footage of the town. In a frame-by-frame analysis, viewers spotted something standing at the edge of the Davenport field, a tall, black silhouette with elongated limbs. When reporters returned to investigate, the field was empty. But local residents confirmed, it comes back every night. Today, Wraithwood is a town frozen in time, its buildings decaying, its streets quiet, its stories carried only by those who remain. But the curse that began in 1823 is still alive, still watching, still taking. Historians warn that until the disturbed burial grounds are restored and the land is properly blessed, Wraithwood will remain a place trapped between the living and the dead. But others believe it's too late. What was awakened in those forests cannot be put back to sleep. If you drive through Wraithwood today, you'll see the empty houses, the overgrown fields, the boarded windows. But if you listen, really listen, you may hear footsteps behind you. You may hear the faint whistle of the phantom train. You may see a shadow standing just beyond the tree line. And if you're unlucky, you might see the Watcher, the tall, eyeless figure who collects the souls of those who wander too close. Most people who enter Wraithwood feel an uncontrollable urge to leave, but for a few, the town feels strangely familiar, almost welcoming, as if it's been waiting for them. Some roads in America are safe to travel at night. Others should be avoided at all costs. But if you ever find yourself on Highway 9, and you see a faded sign that reads, "Welcome to Wraithwood Population 312," do yourself a favor. Keep driving. Don't stop. Don't look back.